Marital bonds and the meaning of separation. Question. I have a question about the bond between spouses.
What is the difference between the bond when a couple parts due to death and when they part due to divorce?
In both cases, the mutual support seems to stop. How should we view these two situations? Answer. Even though we live together now, many of you have not truly become friends with your spouses yet.
Marriage is a journey where the couple gradually builds a friendship.
When couples meet in their youth, they must both make efforts. One puts in effort in their own way, and the other does the same, and together they grow. This process continues until around their 50s. By their 50s, the couple begins to solidify their ideologies. But what if those ideologies no longer align? For example, the husband may dream of meeting a young, beautiful woman, while the wife just wishes for a happy family life. If those core beliefs don't match, then the relationship must be resolved. When ideologies diverge, the bond cannot continue. The reason many families fail is because people don't understand this principle of growing together as a couple. We face failures in family life, but this is so we can discover the right answers. If we find the answers from these failures and pass them on to future generations, we will have fulfilled our purpose. In that sense, our generation is paving the way for a better future by learning from experience and discovering new laws of life. Now back to the core issue. What happens if a couple parts because of death? Has the bond ended? No, it has not. For example, if my wife dies before me, the bond is not severed. Why? Let me explain. If my wife lived with effort and died as a form of sacrifice, that sacrifice was for the sake of the one left behind. The connection remains. Her death carries meaning. It's meant to wake us up, to help us rethink how we live and find a new path forward. Her sacrifice has value only if we change and grow because of it. But if, after some time, we forget the person and simply remarry, do we think that same kind of suffering won't repeat? That's why some say, every man she marries dies. It means that she's being repeatedly taught a lesson. How many lives must be affected before she realizes it? Once the lesson is learned, that cycle stops. There are many forms of life lessons. Some care for a loved one in a hospital for life. Some part ways when they should have. And some hold on too long and both suffer. Each person receives the lessons suited to them. Since World War II, we've been living in a time of immense spiritual education, massive lessons to help us grow. When a loved one dies, especially a spouse or a child, it is a sacrifice for those who remain. The child might return in a future life under better conditions, but in this life, they left early to give us an awakening. They remain tied to us until we fulfill what we need to. They can't move on until the value of their sacrifice is realized. Spirits who can't move on linger in the Guchun realm, the lower spiritual plane, instead of moving to the Yongchun realm, the higher realm, where they could begin reincarnation. These wandering spirits are often our ancestors or loved ones who died before us, especially those who made sacrifices. They have the right to stay near us because of that sacrifice. The problem is, we haven't resolved the reasons for their pain or given meaning to their sacrifice, so they cannot gain spiritual merit and move on. But if we succeed in honoring their sacrifice, they can ascend to the Yongchun realm. The spiritual world follows the laws of nature, just like our physical world. So if a spouse or child dies midway through life, they did so to awaken us. Their death is a form of sacrifice. The way to repay that sacrifice is not with money, but with sincere effort to live rightly. By living a more upright and meaningful life, we give their death value. That becomes a true offering, not just for the child or spouse, but for all loved ones who have passed. So rather than viewing the deceased as pitiful, we should understand they went ahead of us to help guide us. We must recognize this and strive to better ourselves. Only then can we create a society that values life, effort, and spiritual understanding. Do you understand? Understanding spousal bonds and separation. A simplified summary. Many people live as married couples, but that doesn't mean they've become true friends. True companionship in marriage takes time and effort. When people marry young, they grow together by supporting each other, and this growth continues until around their 50s. By the time they reach their 50s, each person's life values and beliefs, ideologies, should be clear. If those values don't match, like if one partner wants freedom and adventure while the other wants a peaceful family life, then the relationship may need to end. It's not a failure. It's a realization that their life paths no longer align. Death versus divorce. What's the difference? 1. When a spouse dies, bereavement. The connection isn't broken. If a spouse passes away, their death is a sacrifice meant to awaken the one who remains. This event is meant to help the living person reflect deeply and change for the better. If the surviving partner doesn't understand this and quickly remarries without reflection, similar patterns may repeat in their life. 2. When a couple divorces. Divorce happens when values no longer align. It can be better to part ways than to stay together and continue hurting each other. Life is teaching both individuals a lesson through that separation. Why do spirits linger? When someone dies for the sake of the living, a spouse or child, they can't move on peacefully unless their sacrifice has meaning. Spirits who haven't been honored properly remain in the lower spiritual plane, called the Guchen realm. Only when the living find purpose, grow, and bring value to the departed's sacrifice can the spirit ascend to a higher level, the Yongchun realm, and reincarnate. Final message: let their sacrifice bear fruit. A loved one's death should not be seen as a tragic end, but as a call for the living to grow and live rightly. When we live better lives because of their sacrifice, we give meaning to their death. That's true spiritual repayment. We shouldn't pity the deceased. Instead, we should recognize their role in helping us wake up and take responsibility for our lives. This teaching helps us see divorce and death not as mere losses, but as spiritual opportunities, chances to reflect, grow, and build a better path for ourselves and future generations. This is a story based on the above articles. A promise in late spring. In a quiet single-story home in Unpyeong, Seoul, the spring rain had just passed, and plum blossoms danced across the courtyard. Kim Young-jae sat silently in front of his wife Jong-hee's portrait. It had been 3 years since she passed away. "Are you doing well up there?" he murmured. "I'm slowly getting better." He tried to sound calm, but the emptiness in his chest remained. Their life together hadn't been easy. In their younger years, they often clashed. Jong-hee wanted a peaceful family life, while Young-jae was consumed with his business. Their ideals never aligned, and their bond, though unbroken, became silent. But on the day she lay on her deathbed holding his hand, she whispered, "We weren't perfect, but I'm glad we stayed together." Those final words etched themselves into his soul. After her passing, Young-jae began climbing the hill behind his house each morning. It was a quiet routine, one that allowed him to remember. One day he stumbled upon a lecture by Master Cheon Gong on YouTube. When a spouse dies, the bond does not end. Their death is a sacrifice, a message to awaken the one who remains. That single sentence hit him like thunder. Jong-hee died to wake me up? That night, he looked back on their life with new eyes. She had always lived for their family. Even as her body weakened, she smiled, comforted the children, and never once complained. He realized now, her life had been a quiet sacrifice. The following spring, Young-jae called his son Min-soo and daughter Yoon-bi. "Dad, is something wrong?" they asked. He replied, "I can't let your mother's life fade without meaning." He transformed part of their old home into a small community room and named it Jong-hee's Salon. It became a cozy space where elderly neighbors gathered to read, listen to lectures, and share stories. People who, like him, knew the ache of loss. One day, an elderly visitor, Mrs. Park, said with a gentle smile, "Mr. Kim, I feel like your wife is smiling with us. Because of her, we're laughing again." For the first time in years, Young-jae smiled back, without tears. That night, he sat again before Jong-hee's photo and whispered, "You saved me. Now it's my turn to become someone meaningful for others. Your sacrifice won't be in vain." Outside, plum blossoms bloomed again. It felt like she had returned, with a promise born in late spring.